Breaking news, stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Roof Rescue. A 44-year-old Logan man is being bound over for trial on charges of allegedly physically abusing and threatening to kill a woman multiple times during the past several years. Paul Wayman has been in the Cache County Jail since being arrested in October. Wayman was in First District Court Monday afternoon for a preliminary hearing hours after being charged with a new count of stalking the alleged victim. He was previously charged with aggravated kidnapping, assault, domestic violence in the presence of a child, violating a protective order, and other felonies and misdemeanors. Before prosecutors started presenting their evidence in the two cases, defense attorney Joseph Saxton said Wayman wished to waive his right to the hearing. He explained they were working on a possible plea deal but didn't provide any details. According to an arrest report, Logan City police officers began investigating Wayman after receiving information of child abuse and severe domestic violence occurring at several local residences. The crimes had been taking place since May of 2019. During an interview last year with police, the alleged victim described multiple incidents of domestic physical abuse. She described how Wayman would allegedly choke her repeatedly. He also took her keys so she could not leave during one dispute and damaged her vehicle several other times. Two children were present during many of the assaults that happened after the suspect had been drinking. The report outlined how during one specific incident, Wayman threatened the woman that he was going to kill the children. Officers later questioned Wayman, who admitted to strangling the victim. He claimed that alcohol use and mental health issues caused him not to remember everything that happened. Wayman spoke only briefly during Monday's hearing, telling the court he wished to waive his rights and be bound over for trial. He was ordered to remain in jail and appear again in court next month. He could face up to life in prison if convicted. KVNU News Time is 5:07. KVNU weather for tonight: partly cloudy, hazy through the night, patchy fog after midnight, low near 15. Partly cloudy, patchy morning fog on Thursday, haze through the day, high temperature in the middle 30s. And then mostly cloudy to partly cloudy on Friday and upper 30s for the high. It's been to 36. It's 34 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Adams Wealth Advisors. They put clients first under any circumstance. You'll receive peace of mind with Adams Wealth Advisors. Schedule a time with an advisor today. Call 752-1702 or visit adamswealthadvisors.com.
If you think it's expensive to hire a professional, just wait until you hire an amateur.
Why the heck is the roof leaking? Larry, you said you got it fixed.
I thought it was fixed, Donna. Everything was fine until it started raining.
Larry, that's the point of fixing the roof, is so we can actually live here when it's stormy outside.
This is David with Roof Rescue. Our experienced roofing team is tried and true and will fix your roof guaranteed. Visit roofrescueusa.com to schedule your free roof inspection. Roof Rescue, providing watertight peace of mind.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. A contest to Rewild the Colorado River is seeking engineering alternatives from the public for the future of the Glen Canyon Dam. Conservation groups have maintained for years that the Glen Canyon Dam is no longer useful and should be re-engineered to allow the Colorado River to flow freely again along the Arizona-Utah border. Daniel Beard, a former commissioner of the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, says the massive structure has outlived its usefulness.
Because of climate change, the nature and distribution of precipitation in the Colorado River Basin has changed. Water is distributed from Lake Mead for purposes, for drinking water, water supply, meeting international commitments, and so forth. But Glen Canyon doesn't have a purpose like that.
The dam was completed in the 1960s for water storage and power generation. Over time, water levels have dropped and the river's ecology has been degraded. However, there are powerful interests, including 7 states and the federal government, that want the multi-million-dollar structure to stay right where it is. Beard says in addition to restoring proper river flows, bypassing Glen Canyon Dam could begin refilling Lake Mead, which is at the lowest level in its history.
Dams are not permanent features on the landscape. They change. They deteriorate with age, they silt up, and they outlive their usefulness. And in the case of Glen Canyon Dam, it has no purpose in today's world.
Along with Beard and Gary Wachner with Save the Colorado, and contest sponsors include Clark County, Nevada Commissioner Tick Seegerblom and groups like Great Basin Water Network and Living Rivers. And crews searching in the West Desert for clues about Susan Powell's disappearance have pulled up torn pants and additional bones from underground. The team, led by Utah native Dave Sparks, has spent the past 8 days at the site pulling up debris from a mine where they believe Susan Powell's remains could be. Sparks said one expert said they were animal bones, but a second expert said that they are human bones. He also said Susan Powell's family wants to come see the pants they pulled up from the underground. Sparks' interest in the mine started when he got a tip about some suspicious activity at the site around the time Susan went missing in 2009. KBNU News Time is 5:11. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Hi, this is Jess Bradfield, Cache County Clerk Auditor and Director of Elections. The 2022 election season is nearly upon us, and the Clerk Auditor's Office wants to make sure you're prepared to vote. Unless otherwise allowed by law, the deadline to affiliate with a political party is March 31st. Whether you've moved and need to update your registration or need to register to vote for the first time, please visit vote.utah.gov. It only takes a few minutes, and voting is one of the best ways to ensure your voice is heard. We will soon begin training election poll workers. If you're interested in assisting with the election, please call 435-755-1460. On behalf of the Clerk Auditor's Office, we look forward to a safe and secure 2022 election.
Utah has great schools, but not every child has access to them. It's time to abandon a one-size-fits-all approach to education and create more hope and opportunity for every Utah student. The Hope Scholarship Bill will allow families to direct education dollars to meet their child's individual learning needs. With Hope Scholarships, every student can access the education that's right for them. Tell your legislators to support the Hope Scholarship Bill. Visit uthopescholarship.org. Paid for by Americans for Prosperity.
Wow, your cars look so shiny.
Thanks. I've been taking them to Green Gorilla Car Wash. Thanks to their new ceramic application, my cars have never had such a glossy shine.
Sounds expensive.
You haven't heard about their sale? Right now, their Jungle membership with ceramic coating is half off for every vehicle. Instead of $30 per month, I'm only paying $14.99 from now until September 2022.
That's almost a whole year.
I know. My half-price membership is good at both Green Gorilla locations in the valley.
I better head there now.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show, Wednesday, February 9th. I'm Jason Williams, Bill Walter here in the studio as well. Yeesh. What a day on Capitol Hill today. It was absolutely crazy. And in a good way, because the discussion was kind of an important one, I think. We'll get to that in a bit. This all centers around a bill called Senate Resolution 1. And this was a bill that was going to make some changes to media access, specifically access to lawmakers during the session. It, no surprise, was controversial when it was first unveiled, sponsored by Senator Mike McKell, who formerly ran for U.S. Senate. He's been in the Senate for a while there. He sponsored this bill that would have restricted some media access to lawmakers. And, of course, that caught everyone's attention, mine included, because we don't want that. They're doing the people's work, and the press oftentimes is our only connection to lawmakers, despite advances in technology and the ability to join committees via Zoom and things like that. The press is still there to, sometimes it's just having the press there as a nice reminder to lawmakers that the public's watching, but they do an important job, and access to lawmakers, that oftentimes is key to them being able to report the stories coming out of the 45-day session. So one of the big disputes was where the press is allowed and not allowed. We'll get to this in a bit. The end result of this committee hearing that wrapped up at about 3:30 today was the resolution passed out of committee. That doesn't mean it's a done deal. The conversation was actually pretty productive almost, but we've got some clips for you, specifically a summary by Senator Todd Weiler, who made the final motion after about an hour and a half of debate and discussion and testimony from members of the media, remarks from lawmakers on why they supported or didn't support this, where the idea came from in the first place, and why, although they weren't specific, it does seem to tie to a specific incident. But again, they were not specific about that incident during the committee meeting, at least today. We'll see if they get more specific in the reports that we see, ironically, in the media later on tonight. So as those reporters keep digging, someone is sure to tell the story, whatever the story is behind this. But it did seem that there was a specific incident that led to the desire to change the rules on press access at the Capitol, on the floor of the House and the Senate, behind the dais during committee meetings, things like that. The resolution did pass the committee with a recommendation from Senator Todd Weiler, who spoke to his recommendation to move the bill out of committee. It did pass, so it goes to a Senate floor debate next. And when that will happen, it's not on the calendar yet, probably not until next week. A Senate resolution does not go to the House. So that means if this changes, if this bill passes the Senate floor debate, it's a done deal. It doesn't have to be signed by the governor either. This is literally a legislative rules discussion. And rumor has it the House is waiting to see what happens with the Senate bill. If there's big public backlash and things like that, then they will not follow suit. If there isn't, they might do the same thing. So that's where things sit right now. But I wanted everybody to get a chance to hear some of the discussion today. So we'll get to that coming up in a bit. Before we do that, the big news on Capitol Hill as far as tax cuts go came today. I expected it later on this week or early next. And it's not final news. This doesn't mean it's a done deal. But yesterday on the show I mentioned that there was a wrench had been thrown in the works as far as the proposed income tax cut. And there were a couple of reasons for that. One was the tech lobby basically came out against them, said, we think Utah has some unmet financial needs and some unmet investment needs, and the money that the state would, quote-unquote, lose by cutting income tax from 4.95 to 4.85, which is what the proposal currently is, would slow the state down in being able to meet some of these needs. Representatives of this lobby group said they have a hard time hiring employees into tech jobs because tech in general tends to be traditionally in other locations in the country where public transit is far more robust, housing and walking to work are a more frequent option. The quality of life is a bit higher as far as what your weekend and downtown options are. Air quality is better. There are fewer environmental concerns, at least as far as public policy goes, and that is something the tech industry says attracts workers. That's what the workers in that industry look for before they decide where to locate or which job to accept. And it's a highly competitive industry right now. So workers can literally take their choice of 3 or 4 different job options. So these these representatives of this tech lobby, basically Silicon Slopes lobby group, said Utah needs to invest in itself, and cutting the income tax is just going to slow that investment down even more, and we're already behind schedule. So lawmakers pulled the brakes for a little bit, and then the House really pulled the brakes. Yesterday, the House stripped, so the bill would have cut the income tax from 4.95 to 4.85. It would have cut some Social Security taxes, but I'm not sure by how much. That's still being debated. And then there were about $6 million in the same bill, $6 million in business tax incentives, tax cuts for businesses. And the House stripped every one of them out. So today, now at this point, $200 million price tag bill comes back to the Senate from the House. And the big question is, will the Senate concur? Which means, does the Senate agree, or does the Senate say, no, we don't agree with what the House did, stripping those business tax exemptions out, and we're putting them back in, at which point, it's either a stalemate and nothing happens, or the House backs down, or the Senate backs down, and the debate can go on until the end of the session. But to everyone's surprise today, that was not the tone of the Senate. Here's just a bit from today's Senate press briefing on this proposed tax cut bill.
Been involved in this. We do have afternoon floor time tomorrow, so if we talk about a caucus, there is a possibility that concurrence could occur in the afternoon.
Yeah. So are you going to try to add in back any of those business tax exemptions that were put in originally that then were removed by the House, or is that going to be a separate effort under the bill that I believe was filed separately?
I think we've decided as a body, and the revenue tax chairs talked about this as well, Representative Snyder and I, and we decided that we're going to run that bill separately as part of SB 93. And the hope is that as we're, like every policy that gets through here, that the process and the policy gets better as it moves forward. But we think Senate Bill 93 is probably where those concepts will be housed.
So in the position of leadership then, do you support the amendments the House put in, which is the earned income tax credit and the Social Security cut?
Yeah, I support them, and I don't know. I won't speak for myself. The Senator Vickers, you've been involved.
The discussion's always been, as Senator McKay alluded to, that we started out with primarily with the income tax rate cut, and we knew that the House was going to add some things. We allowed them to have their flexibility and freedom to do that, and we'll look at it when it comes back. But I'm kind of like Senator McKay. I don't want to really get ahead of anybody, so let the caucuses decide. But I suspect we probably will.
And during this same Senate presser, they discussed Senate Resolution 1 that I introduced the hour talking about, and leadership had a chance to weigh in on it. The committee meeting during these remarks hadn't happened yet, but Senate President Stuart Adams did speak to at least his understanding of where this bill that would restrict media access to lawmakers is coming from.
The bill, I don't think, changes policy significantly. What it does is actually require anybody from the media to be with a senator or to be invited in, if not with a senator, by our communications people. Same thing happens with lobbyists, same things happens with individuals, and just a clarifying of the policy so that it actually allows the people running the meeting, meaning the chair of the committee, or anyone else, to be able to direct where cameras are and those type of things, so that the public has access and there's no access fire problems or exit problems. But just to give orderly, I think, format to the process, clarifies it. I think it's going to be in a committee hearing today. So if there's comments on it, we expect hopefully for anybody in the media to comment.
And they did. Nearly 2 hours of testimony during that committee hearing today, and we've got some of the highlights for you coming up right after this.
Hi, this is Drew Allen with Allen Mortuaries. Over the years, thousands of families have planned ahead with Allen Mortuaries. Planning ahead helps you make informed and thoughtful decisions. It also spares your family the stress of making these decisions under the pressure of time and strong emotions. Allen Mortuaries' secure pre-need trust plan can save you nearly 40% versus other plans. Keep it simple, safe, and secure. Go with the proven choice, Allen Mortuaries. Voted best funeral home in Cache Valley in northern Utah. Allen Mortuaries. Then, now, always.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. My wife and I were laughing the other day because she read an article about things not to buy online. The first thing was prom dresses. Dresses advertised versus dresses delivered. Needless to say, what people thought they were getting is not what they got. It's much the same with mattresses. Almost always, buying a mattress online ends in buyers being let down. At My Mattress, we try to always exceed expectations. Lower prices than online and better beds. Only at My Mattress.
Thursday edition Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, the absolute latest on the ongoing masking battle as the blue states, they finally start to show a little bit of sanity. Where are we headed? We'll break down the latest there. Plus, Buck.
We've got Congressman and former Special Forces Officer Michael Waltz joining to talk about China and the Olympics, plus former NFL player and Army Ranger Jake Piquette on what's going on with anyone getting kicked out of the military for vaccine mandates and more. That's coming up on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Pretty exciting day on Capitol Hill as lawmakers took up, as you heard before the break there, this disagreement between the House and the Senate over tax cuts. The Senate wants to see, in addition to the income tax cut and Social Security tax cut, some targeted business incentives, business exemptions from certain taxes, about $6 million worth of those for specific businesses. And the House stripped them all out yesterday. The Senate, it was expected, would balk at this and a stalemate would begin and they'd fight it out until the end of the session. Instead, the Senate today said, okay, we concur, or well, we'll likely concur, is what you heard there in the audio tomorrow during our floor time, and then we'll just run these business exemptions as a separate bill. We'll see if the House is really opposed to them or not. That will be coming up next week, but that's where things stand on the tax cut. The second biggest item, at least attention-wise today, was Senate Resolution 1. This was a bill that would have restricted, or will, it isn't dead, will restrict media access to lawmakers. And lawmakers have been pretty vague about the specifics, but it's clear that this comes down to a single incident that has occurred recently that has raised some concern about where the media can go during the legislative session. The bill basically sets some rules. It says the media can't go on the floor of the House or the Senate, something that's always been allowed if you're credentialed media, unless you get approval from the media relations specialist, a position that currently doesn't exist. The second change to Senate rules that Senate Resolution 1 would make is no journalists would be allowed behind the dais during a committee meeting. If you've ever been to one of these, there's usually a large crowd sitting in front of a half-moon-shaped table or desk, elevated so you can see their faces. They all have microphones, and traditionally, after a committee meeting ends, the media can go up and talk to lawmakers that make up the committee directly right after the committee happens. And it's a great way to get information. I've done it myself, actually. This Senate Resolution 1 would ban that practice. You would actually have to, in advance, get permission from the Senate committee chair to do this, or to speak to any of the lawmakers. So obviously there was some concern about this, and with good reason. Media testifying today, it just goes on and on and on. The gavel banged down at about 2 o'clock. The committee meeting ended at about 3:30. Well, it didn't end, actually. They had 4 other bills they had to still talk about, but the discussion ended at about 3:30. But it was pretty heated. Senator McKell, the sponsor of Senate Resolution 1, said, first off, the news media is always welcome in our committee rooms. The only change that they'd like to see is a restriction of media access behind the dais. He said you'll have to get permission from the committee chair at any committee. And he says, personally, he will always grant it for the committees he chairs. But he thinks the rule needs to be in place in case there is a situation where they might not want to do that. Citing as a reason today, again, this all seems to tie back to a specific incident, but no one came right out and said what it was. But they cited many times how things have changed as far as what we consider media now. So when we say media, we're not talking just reporters from the Salt Lake Tribune or Deseret News or those of us here at KVNU and CashValleyDaily.com. We're also talking about there's a blog in southern Utah called the Free Range Report. This is a kind of a far-right news endeavor, and they cover the legislative session, and they could get credentialed. Years ago, a few of us here were credentialed for a blog. So That's changed the game a little bit, McKell said. And then he said, there are additional security concerns. And he brought up the January 6th insurrection in Washington, D.C. in 2021. He said, people were storming the Capitol and assaulting police officers. And their whole justification for this is we're the taxpayers. This is our house. And so he said that does change the game a little bit. It does mean that they have, increased security concerns for lawmakers, for the public, for everyone in a committee meeting and more. So he was very careful to say, look, we're not trying to cut the media out here. And as a chair of a committee myself, McKell said, I would always grant media, especially those I know and have been familiar with over the years, access to lawmakers behind the dais. But he said the rule should be in place that we can deny that access if we want to. Now, obviously, that's a tricky area to get into because transparency rules should default towards openness. And that's where members of the media were coming from today. McKell, under pressure, dropped. There was an additional dress code requirement. They dropped that very quickly. I don't even know why that was in there. Senator Todd Weiler from the Bountiful area, he asked about the Senate gallery and restrictions on the fourth floor and things like that. This bill would not change any of that, McKell said. Hallways of the Senate floor, those would be part of the restricted area, though, and the lounge as well. And that's also out of tradition. In fact, we used to broadcast on the final day of the legislative session. They asked us to stop doing it because it was too loud. But several years in a row, we broadcast this show for the people from the lounge of the state Senate, right behind the floor where they're having debates on bills. And as senators would come out, we were able to just literally grab them and say, well, not literally, but wave our hands and flag them and say, hey, do you have 10 minutes? And they'd come over and they'd talk to us about this or that. And it was a lot of fun. That would not be allowed under this bill. In fact, the media would not be allowed back there at all under this bill. The debate went on for quite some time, and of course, representatives of every media outlet, including an independent investigative journalism project called the Investigative Journalism Project, Eric Peterson, who's been on the show many times over the years, a good friend of the show, he said that he in his testimony before the committee, he said the particular problem seems to be about a specific incident. And so he said, why not address this with this particular journalist or this particular media outlet? He said reaching out for permission in theory is a good idea, but requests don't always get responded to, and that would be a really good, easy way for lawmakers to hide. Just don't respond to the request. Senator Bramble said he agreed, but he said, if it's the people we're representing, if we're on the front row, how does it inhibit reporting on the committee? And members of the media pointed out that, lawmakers know better than that. A lot of discussions happen after the committee ends that can be more revealing. News director at KUTV News spoke out against this rule change during the committee hearing today as well. Said that the rule change would completely restrict access to journalists and photojournalists at the state legislature in some really key ways. And he said, as a member of the media, as a Utahn, we just have questions we want to know the answers to. Lawmakers, again, weren't answering that question. What this specifically related to, what specific incident triggered this, what specific journalist or media outlet. My guess is it's one of the non-traditional sources. It's not going to be the Tribune or the Deseret News or anything like that. It's probably one of the credentialed bloggers. I don't think we use that word anymore, but you know what I'm getting at. Senators defended the bill. It was pretty bipartisan who was opposed and for as far as the committee members, the lawmakers themselves. But it was a robust discussion. And one of the comments that was made by a member of the media, I forget which one as I was listening, it was a director of news somewhere, said that couldn't this all be solved with a credentialing? Isn't this a credentialing problem? Maybe they need to be pickier about who they credential. To which Senator McKell responded, we thought about that. And then the conversation ended. So where did things wrap up? Well, finally, towards the end of this, again, it had gone on about 2 hours at this point, Senator Todd Weiler decided to sort of take control of the situation and recommend that this resolution pass the committee and go to a full Senate floor debate in the coming days. And here's what Senator Weiler had to say while acknowledging reservations from Fox 13's Ben Winslow and representatives of newspapers, television broadcast journalism, everyone there basically to say, look, you're restricting our access. That should and does make everyone nervous. And I agree. Senator Weiler said, I get those concerns, but
several members of the media in this room right now who are very good at their job. With that said, I think, and I want to echo the other comments, I hope that we will continue to have discussions about the ideas that were floated here, because this bill could be amended on the Senate floor, it could be amended in House committee, it could be amended on the House floor, it could be amended in a conference committee. And so I hope that the discussions continue. But, you know, this idea, and I can pinch myself every day that I get to work in the people's house, and this is the people's business, and it's all taxpayer funded. I am very cognizant of that fact. And at the same time, I just want to revisit the point I made in one of my first questions. The barriers of civility and discourse that have been respected in this state and in this country for decades are changing, and they're changing rapidly. And, you know, what we saw on January 6th of last year was people who said, this is the U.S. Capitol, I'm a taxpayer, so I can come in this Capitol, I can break a window, I can break down a door. That attitude permeated a little bit to Utah when we saw graffiti, which broke my heart. I guess that was before, on May 30th of 2020. And so I do think the time is appropriate for us to set the guidelines. I'm totally comfortable with having the chair control the committee hearing. I think a judge controls his courtroom. I drew that analogy as well. I wouldn't be surprised, I don't want to box him in, I wouldn't be surprised if there are many times in the future, if this bill passes, that Chairman Bramble allows the media past behind the dais. I know I will in my committees that I chair. Just because we have a rule doesn't mean we can't waive it. But if someone is stepping across the line, if they are pushing the barriers, it is nice to have a rule in place. And that's the reason I made the motion, and that's my summation, Mr.
That was, again, Senator Todd Weiler, Republican lawmaker from Bountiful, and a good friend of the show, I should mention, very funny guy, speaking in favor of the resolution while acknowledging everyone's reservations and admitting that they probably wouldn't ever enforce this rule very often. But again, no one speaking directly to what specific incident seems to have triggered all of this. A journalist from somewhere, some credentialed member of the media has crossed a line. The implication is, again, it's one of the non-traditional media outlets. The incident that Senator Weiler said there broke his heart was when someone sprayed swastikas and white power symbols all over the Capitol outside on a weeknight during either last year or 2 years ago. So that's the justification given. The resolution passed. It does go to the Senate floor for a debate. It's not scheduled for a floor debate yet, at least as I've seen on the calendar. It could be as soon as tomorrow. Most likely it's going to be early next week. If this passes, it's a Senate resolution, not a joint resolution, meaning if it passes the Senate, it's a done deal. It's a rule change, and the House will probably follow suit, although they already have some more strict rules on media access and are a bit more sheepish about meeting with the media regularly. The Senate has always been very open that way. This would change that, but Senator Weiler, again, and everyone else saying this is happening for a good reason. Trust us seems to be the justification given, is what I'm trying to say, and that makes me nervous. Although it's not the end of the world. I don't know. Well, keep an eye on this one, is what I'm saying. Senate Resolution 1, you can read it on le.utah.gov, the legislative website, and we'll be back with more of highlights from Capitol Hill today after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:38, and the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. A two-vehicle crash this morning sent one man to the hospital with serious injuries. The accident was reported around 8 a.m. west of Newton. Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Jason Kendrick said a 22-year-old Cornish man was driving a Buick Regal westbound along SR 142. Just west of the SR 23 intersection, the car drifted across the center line and collided with a Dodge pickup head-on. The single occupant of the Buick was pinned inside the car and had to be extricated by emergency crews. A medical helicopter later transported him to a hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries to his lower leg. The driver of the Dodge pickup, a 32-year-old Clarkston woman, sustained minor injuries. She was driven to the hospital to be checked out as a precaution. Kendrick said initial evidence suggests the driver of the Buick may have suffered from some sort of medical issue or fatigue. Just prior to the crash, there was no sign of impairment. Troopers did not find any evidence of drugs or alcohol in the vehicle. A 42-year-old Logan man has been arrested and charged with allegedly molesting a young girl several years ago. Dustin James Krager was booked Tuesday into the Cache County Jail. According to the probable cause statement, West Jordan police officers received a report last year from a girl who claimed she had been sexually abused by Krager, a family relative. During a forensic interview with investigators, the alleged victim described how she was staying at Krager's home on December 27, 2019. During the night, the suspect allegedly invited her into his bedroom, explaining that he was struggling with PTSD and needed the girl to hold him so he could sleep. The girl agreed, and shortly after, Krager began molesting her. The alleged victim told police that after this happened, she got out of the bed and ran out of the room. She barricaded herself in a bathroom and called her mother to come and get her. The police report stated that when family members confronted Krager about the girl's allegations, he denied them and said he was playing video games. He later claimed it was the girl's idea to come into his bed. And after almost a month in the hospital, Ephraim Asiata is finally home. The 15-year-old was shot and critically wounded on January 13th in West Valley City. Two of his friends, 15-year-old Paul Tahi and 14-year-old Tavani Lopati, were killed in the shooting. In an Instagram video posted Tuesday evening by his mother, Tanji Asiata, Ephraim is seen getting out of a car and walking to a memorial on a West Valley sidewalk, a tribute to the victims that has been growing ever since the shooting. Fox 13 reports all three boys were students and football players at Hunter High School. Later Tuesday night, Ephraim posted a tweet saying, "Feel so good to be home." Anyone wishing to help the Lopati and Tahi families can donate via GoFundMe. KVNU News Time is 5:41.
The colder weather is here. Are your quilts and blankets looking dingy? Is your winter coat or jacket dirty enough to stand in the corner just by itself? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen up everything. They have the 55 and 80-pound washers, the biggest around, and great big dryers, too, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town on the corner of 5th East, 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham at 1st East, 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry.
KVNU weather, partly cloudy, hazy through the night, patchy fog after midnight, low near 15. Partly cloudy, patchy morning fog, haze through the day on Thursday, mid-30s for the high. It's been to 36. It's 33 right now at KVNU. KVNU weather brought to you by Northern Steel Building. Steel is stronger, more flexible, and more dependable than wood, masonry, and concrete. Plus, steel is often less expensive. See their work online at northernsteelbuilding.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit cachevalleydaily.com.
My name is John Brenchley. Last year, my father, Lynn, passed away. Our family misses him tremendously. From the first phone call we made to White Pine Funeral Services until he was laid to rest, White Pine helped us every step of the way. The staff was there to guide us through the entire process. They were kind, gracious, and their facilities are amazing. White Pine helped to make the difficult situation of losing my dad into a positive experience where we could remember him and celebrate his life.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
This Valentine's Day, give a piece of jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Save time and money by taking advantage of our Valentine's Day special. With the purchase of any jewelry valued at $149 or more, you'll receive dinner for two, chocolates and flowers. You can have Valentine's Day covered in one stop. Choose from a large selection of diamonds, pearls, gold, and silver jewelry. Also, your jewelry will come in our signature gift box. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block at the sign of the clock.
The guys from UNI Furniture are excited. They went to Vegas and came back winners. Wait a minute, it's not what you're thinking. Those guys from UNI went to the furniture market in Vegas, and they picked up 2 new lines of furniture. New lines of dining room, bedroom, living room, TV consoles, and home entertainment pieces. UNI also took in a semi-truckload of Southern Motion recliners, sectionals, and chairs they weren't expecting. Stocked up with lots of inventory and lots of great deals. That's why they say you'll always find a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Jessup Insurance would like to invite you to attend a friendly, no-pressure, no-cost educational Medicare 101 meeting Wednesday, February 16th. Get to know Jessup Insurance as they guide you through Medicare, simplifying the entire process, all while enjoying a yummy dessert. Wednesday, 7 p.m., February 16th at Jessup Insurance. Call 213-3200. That's 213-3200 to reserve a seat.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. I'm Jason Williams. Listeners out there, Bill, do you ever feel almost overwhelmed by your communications, your technology, your cell phone, the
at times, yes,
app notifications, inbox badges, all those words none of us knew 10 years ago? Sometimes it seems like they've sort of taken over your life.
Inbox badges?
The little notification of how many emails you have or how many texts you have.
Oh, okay.
Little number up in the top right corner. That's a badge, they call it. And, it's just, it can get overwhelming. But I have happy news to report. And I'm sure someone else out there can sympathize. But just in the space of this show, during the breaks, going through each break and searching my inbox for certain keywords and key senders, I've managed to reduce my unopened emails from 4,800 to 3,400 unopened emails in my inbox. Don't email me important stuff. That's the general rule, I guess. This is a serious thing, though. I was reading about this just over the weekend. The effect that all this. Yeah, I've always been one to resist the sky is falling, Chicken Little mindset with new technology, because it seems to happen every time something new comes out, or some new process is developed, or some new software changes the way we use existing technology. All these different ways it can happen, and it catches on. It gets widely popular, and then you'll start to see these almost contrarian for the sake of being contrarian
Dr. Josh
takes. And a lot of times it's an op-ed, or sometimes it's even little bits of research that might come out of research institutions here and there, but cherry-picked. And it will always be, I remember when Wikipedia and Google were first really starting to become household terms. I remember a lot of, admittedly very smart people, or, well, maybe, were saying, this is going to make us dumber. We won't remember anything anymore. Because it's all on the internet. We can just, we can look it up at the drop of a hat. But what we've found since then is that it actually, at least as far as students graduating high school and college, it's actually making people smarter. They know more about more things. At least the testing reveals that. But it has changed some things. I still have friends that ask me questions that I want to reply to sometimes with the... It's an acronym you'll see online a lot, but it's LGFY. If someone replies to you LGFY, that means you could have looked that up yourself. Why are you wasting their time asking them? It's let me Google that for you. But
it should be LMG.
Oh yeah. So no, yeah, they leave the me and the that out. So it's just LG.
Oh, okay.
FY.
Yeah,
LGFY.
The other way is too many letters.
Yeah, you've got to shorten everything. But so, things like that have changed. And these are cultural shifts, too, around this, that will. I remember a few years ago we talked with Dr. Lynn McNeil at Utah State University. She's the resident folklorist. She studies, researches, and teaches folklore and its importance. And we talked years ago with her here in the studio about how, folklore isn't going away. But it changes. What used to be campfire stories, and I'm from a generation that remembers campfire stories. My extended family did a lot of camping when I was a kid, and still some today, every year. And there were these stories that you'd heard. Sometimes you'd heard them 100 times, but they were still hilarious, or they were still touching, or they were still important, or what have you. And sometimes, when Grandma was alive, it was just fun to hear her sit and tell the stories, even if you've heard them before. That is something that still happens, but probably not as much. At one point, that was history. That was, you've got the what is it? 1, 2, 3 and me. I don't remember all the genealogy research and all of that, where people can go and track back, the details of their family history through genealogy. It's very interesting stuff, but a lot of family history is, the storytelling. These and sure, they get modified and changed a bit over the years. Embarrassing tidbits are sometimes stricken from the record, but either way, it becomes a bit of a history. And Dr. McNeil here in the studio said, the digital era that we're in changes that. It's also, we've talked about this with public records and government records as well. When everything's digital, what does it mean to archive something these days? When, you've got state laws that mandate archiving for a certain amount of time. Is that even necessary anymore when everything's pretty much permanent? So, a lot of those things have changed. But I'm talking about our day-to-day life. I really don't think this technology has really, for every cost that it's come with, those are outweighed by benefits. But there are stresses to this that you adapt to very quickly. I really want to use the frog in the boiling pot of water thing, but I'm trying to break myself of that analogy because I learned it's not true. The frog will jump out. But still, that type of analogy, insert one there, we acclimate to this, and we have very quickly, but you don't realize, when it comes to general anxiety throughout your day, stress, things that might get you worked up and ruin your day, a lot of it comes from this casino, basically, that's in your pocket. One of the solutions I've come up with is my phone's always on silent. I've had to do that. That's a decision I made to keep myself sane. Basically running a business off my phone, planning a radio show each day, large family that, we keep in constant contact via text and funny stories and things like that. All this combined, friends, events that come up, your phone, my phone was just dinging and buzzing and beeping all day long, and it started to affect me. And if you've ever been into a casino or even walked through a casino, they're designed to do this a certain way. This is a way to think about your smartphone and decide how much of your life you're going to give it a presence in. A casino is designed to overwhelm you with sound and bright lights and activity. And the idea is that you'll get so swept up in that you won't leave, or at least you'll stay a lot longer than you were planning to. Now, obviously, for someone who never gambles, this isn't a problem. It's just an annoying walk from one part of the hotel to the other if you happen to be staying in Vegas for another reason. But if you've ever spent any time in a casino, you know what I'm talking about. They're designed this way. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's supposed to be so noisy you can't have a conversation. It's supposed to be so distracting and full of flashing lights and bells and whistles and alarms and all that your brain literally just shuts off and you become this little automaton just doing what they want you to do. Your cell phone and every single app on it is designed with the same goal in mind. And it's easy to forget that. I've linked to this on our Facebook page, but a great reminder about this. Some research that was done in the University of New Mexico on attention spans and self-reported levels of anxiety. And what they would do is they would actually just So they would tell them, we're going to do this study, and volunteers would sign up, and then they would say, we're not really going to tell you what this study is, but we will tell you that on a regular basis, every 2 hours throughout your day for a week, we're going to ask you to take this little survey on your smartphone. I think it was a 7-question survey, and we're going to ask you to take that every 2 hours for 7 days. But then they also wanted their cell phone numbers, and then they asked them to install a certain app. And what they did in this research is and again, this was with consent of the volunteers, but what they did is they had people just carrying their phones around, assumedly, and taking the survey every 2 hours. And what they would do is some 2-hour blocks, they just leave them alone, their normal day. Other 2-hour blocks, through this app they asked them to install, and through text communications regarding the survey, they would just inundate them. Just a lot of information all at once over a 30-minute period. And then at the end of that 2-hour period, where that 30-minute period was included, they'd say, okay, now take the survey. How are you feeling? Are you anxious? And what they found basically is that in this experiment, the more times a person's phone buzzed and beeped, or they got a notification or some kind of question via a text or a pop-up from an app, the more that happened, the higher their level of anxiety. Not to dangerous levels, the study says, but enough that it could ruin your day. And so then they tried another experiment where they had these exact same people every 2 hours put their phone away for 15 minutes. Actually, I'm sorry, it was 30 minutes. For 30 minutes every 2 hours, they had to put their phone down, turn it off, not be around it. And then they would ask them to take these same survey questions. And they found, of course, the opposite, that the volunteers reported lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of worry, lower levels of feeling stretched too thin, or as Bilbo says, like butter spread over too much bread. And it was directly tied to this little pocket casino that you've got. And this doesn't mean that there aren't huge benefits to the connectivity. Like I say, if you have anything to do with running a business or managing a business, the advances from smartphone, from Post-it notes, it's huge, and it makes things a lot more efficient. Productivity is way up because of these things in ways. In other ways, we're all getting worn out by it, and it's raising our anxiety, and we're not conscious of the fact that your smartphone is like being in a casino. It's meant to keep you focused on the phone and not walking away doing something else. Check it out. I've posted a link to this report on our Facebook page, and we'll be back right after this.
Dr. Josh Red, chiropractic physician, explains how Red River Health and Wellness can help you.
If you have low thyroid and you're taking thyroid medication, the biggest question you should ask yourself is, what's causing my low thyroid specifically? If you don't know the answer to that question, it's important to call us. At Red River, we identify triggers that will cause the low thyroid to begin with. One of the most common causes of low thyroid is a disease called Hashimoto's disease. This is an autoimmune disease that is a lot more complicated than just a primary thyroid issue. This is why people will be on thyroid hormone but still feel little to no improvement, because nothing's being done to address the bigger, more complicated problem, which is Hashimoto's. If you have low thyroid or you have an autoimmune disease and you're on medication and still don't feel well, call Red River.
Schedule your appointment today at 855-55-RIVER. Red River Health and Wellness, with offices in Logan, South Jordan, Springville, and St. George.
Call Red River today.
When the bills from your accident pile up, it's time for you to consider professional legal counsel. Get the Berenson and Caldwell.
My dad was in a car accident. He was rear-ended by a work truck. He sustained some pretty bad injuries. What we didn't know at the time was that he also had sustained a traumatic brain injury, and it really affected his personality. If he had just had an MRI, if he'd had someone pushing him to get checked out, make him feel confident that he wasn't going to end up going bankrupt with medical debt.
Visit BerensonLaw.com to instantly connect and receive a free case review of your injury. BerensonLaw.com.
Cold weather is here. Let the gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah's fireplace category help you update your home with Napoleon's full line of gas or wood-burning products. Building a new home? Let the professionals at Advanced Fireplace and Stove design and install your fireplace. From traditional to modern, Napoleon has something for every design and every budget. Install a product that will allow your family to make memories for years to come. Stop by at their showroom or visit them at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Ah, that's better. Trade in the stresses of building a new home for relaxation. Visionary Homes Priority is giving you a stress-free building experience. Named the best home builder in northern Utah, Visionary Homes team will guide you seamlessly through the home building process. Call today, 435-228-4702, or visit visionaryhomes.com to learn more about upcoming communities in Nibley, Logan, and Smithfield. Visionary Homes, built for living, built for you.
That is our time for today. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow on the program, Charlie Schill joins us, and this other guy, Congressman Blake Moore, will be here in studio in Hour 1, meeting Charlie's coming up in Hour 2. Bit of a shift on Thursdays to accommodate the Congressman's schedule. He'll kick things off, Congressman Blake Moore, tomorrow on the show. Dave Ramsey and Logan High basketball next here on KVNU Logan.